Alright, what's up everybody? I am Geek for Code, coming at you with a C# tutorial featuring beautiful code. Now I don't know about you, but I love to code and I love to learn. So let's go ahead and get started and hopefully we'll learn together. Now today's video, we are going to be creating two small but important things. First, we will be creating our OnPropertyChanged object that will be implemented within our model and then our future view model. Now the OnPropertyChanged is used to notify the UI and objects bounded to the UI that properties have been changed. Second, we'll be creating our DelegateCommand object, which will be used for our show information button on our view. So let's go ahead and jump into our application and let's make some beautiful code. Now, first things first, let's go ahead and create our OnPropertyChanged object, which is going to be placed inside of our model folder. So let's go ahead and create a class inside of our model folder. And today let's go ahead and call it let's call this data property changed. Alright. Now we want this to be able to be called without needing it to be initialized. So let's go ahead and make it a public abstract class. Now we are going to inherit from notify property changed. That will give us a using from the system.component model. Let's go ahead and slide that down here where it's supposed to be. Now let's go ahead and implement this interface. It will automatically add the property change event handler called property changed. Next, let's go ahead and create the actual OnPropertyChanged method that we will be using. And it will be a protected virtual void method. We are going to call it OnPropertyChanged. And inside of here, we are going to give it a caller member name. And basically, essentially what this is, it allows you to put in the name of the property that you are actually using. So you can, if you have a property called first name, in here you can say this dot on property changed, and inside of here you can say this dot first name, or you can give it a name of this dot first name. This allows you to do that. So we are going to give it a string. Let's call it property name, say equals null. And now in here, let's say this dot property changed. We are going to invoke this and pass in this object. We're going to say new properties change event args, and we are going to pass in the property names parameter that we created. And there we have it. It is very simple to create the OnPropertyChanged class, but we are going to go ahead and beauty this up because you can't make an object without making it look beautiful. See, this is full ugly. We have to make it full beautiful. So that is what we're about to do. So let's go ahead and give the class a summary name, and let's say this is for property change events. Now this property changed right here, let's go ahead and say the property changed events, and then let's beauty this up. Say let's say to be called when a property changes to fire the property change events. And there you have it. Now we have a property changed class, and it is fully beautiful. Now let's go ahead and create our delegate command objects. Now this object is going to be within our view model. So in our view model folder, let's go ahead and add a class. Let's go ahead and give this a simple name of delegate command. Let's pretty this up a little bit. Say public. Now command we are going to inherit from iCommand, the command interface. So we are going to inherit from iCommand. We're going to get this using real fast, put it down here where it's supposed to be, and now inherits the interface. We'll implement the interface. Now it creates the can execute changed, and it creates the can execute method and the execute method. Before we deal with these though, let's go up here and create the action and the predicate that the constructor of this class takes. So first let's go ahead and create a private read-only, and we're going to have a predicate object, and we are going to say the predicate is called can execute. Now the action, self-explanatory a little bit, we're going to call that execute. And there we go. Now let's go ahead and create the two constructors that our object is going to use. So when you have a command, you can have a command that has both a predicate and an action, or you can just have a command that has an action. So first let's go ahead and create the constructor that just has the action alone. So we are going to say action and then objects, and let's call that execute. And then next we are going to create the second, I can't talk right now, I'm sorry. Okay, we're going to create the second constructor, and we are going to, let's say, give it an action. Yeah, let's give it an action named execute, and then we are going to give it a predicate, and we are going to name the predicate can execute. Now since we just created our second parameter, we can go to the first one and give it a base of this, and inside of here we can say give it the action execute, and then the predicate will be null. And this says we are just going to have a command that all it's going to do is just execute something. It doesn't have to figure out if it can execute it or not. So since we got that, let's go ahead down to our second constructor, and let's go ahead and initialize the private read-only fields that we have. First, we need to make sure that the execute and can execute are not null. So let's go ahead and say if execute equals null, and then down here we are going to say if they can execute equals null, and if these are null, we want to go ahead and throw an argument null exception, and inside of here we want to say the name of let's do name of execute, and then so I'm going to copy that and put that down here and say this is going to be can execute. Now if that doesn't happen, we can go ahead and initialize executes with execute, and this dot can executes with can execute. And there is our constructor. Now let's go ahead and move down to the fun and juicy parts of the delegate commands, and that is the actual implementation of can execute and execute. So let's go down here, and in can execute, we are going to go ahead and say if this dot can execute equals null, let's go ahead and throw a new, let's do an invalid operation exception, and that is going to be the name of can execute. If that doesn't happen, we are just going to return this dot, let's say this dot can execute with the parameter. There we go. Oh, I always forget the semicolon. All right, well, the colon. Now that we got the can execute, let's go ahead and move down to the actual execute, and then in here we can say, let's say if this dot execute equals null, we are going to go ahead and throw an invalid exception, an invalid operator exception for execute. If that doesn't happen, oops, there. If that doesn't happen, we can go ahead and say this dot execute with the parameter. The last thing we need to do, notice when we implemented the I command, it automatically added the can execute changed event handler. We can actually use that to re-raise the can execute method itself. So with that, we can go ahead with public void, and let's call it raise can execute changed. And then in here, we are going to create another event handler called handler, and this dot can execute. This can execute changed. Then let's go ahead and say, let's see if the handler is not null. Ooh. If it does not equal to null, we are going to say application, and we have to create the using for this. I didn't want to do that. I want the using. Thank you. It kept on messing up on me. Just kept on actually adding everything down here besides adding the actual using up there. So let's say application.current, use the dispatcher, and then invoke that. And let's invoke that with let's say handler, invoke it with this, and say event args.empty. And there we have it. That is our delegate command object. Now, looking at this, we still have to make this beautiful, because this object right here, this class right here, is full ugly. It's what we call full ugly. We need to make it full beautiful. So let's go. Let's do it. Let's go ahead and style copy it to make it full beautiful. Let's say a command for changing current application view. And then let's go ahead and pretty up our predicate action and event handler. So the predicate is going to say can execute delegate. This is going to be execute delegate. And let's say this can execute change is going to be an event that is fired when the can execute return changes. Let's go ahead and beautify our constructors. So we're going to say initializes new instance of the DelegateCommand class, and then I misspelled initializes. I am going to need that down here, so I don't want to have to type. Oh, stop it! I don't want to have to type that again, so I am just going to copy and paste that down there. And then the parameter is going to be, let's say, delegate with logic for the execution of this command. Since I'm going to use that down here as well. And then the can execute inside of the constructor with two parameters is going to be, let's say, delegate that, let's say, determines if this command can be executed. Now, since we are throwing argument null exceptions, since we have exceptions in here, we want to make sure we document those exceptions as well. That is a good design practice. So let's go ahead and say arguments null exception. And so let's go ahead and say if either execute or can execute is null. All right, there we go. And then so that is done. So we can go ahead and say we're going to move down here to the can execute, and with the can execute, we are going to say, let's say, determines if this command can be executed, and then the parameter itself, let's say method parameter, and then this will return true if this delegate command can be executed. Yeah, false otherwise. Now, just like up here, we need, since we have invalid operation exception, we need to add that documentation. So instead of that, we are going to have invalid operation exception, and then we are going to say, let's say, if the command was created with parameterless objects. Let's go down here to our execute method and beautify this up. Now execute, let's say, executes the logic for this delegate command. Now the parameter is going to be method parameter, and then we have invalid operation exception. Let's say if the command was created with the parameterless objects. Boom! Let's go. This thing is more than halfway beautiful. Not full, more than halfway beautiful. Let's go. Let's make it full beautiful. Now we have to do raise can execute change. So let's say raises the can execute changes event for this command. And there we go. Now we have a delegate command object that is full beautiful. Now before, we created the data property changed object for OnPropertyChanged. So let's go ahead to our user information model, and let's go ahead and show how we can implement this property changed. Well, excuse me. So let's go over to our information model. Now it's very simple to implement this on changed. So what we do, we have our model inherits the class that we created for the OnPropertyChanged, and the class is called Data Property Changed. And so we allow this user information class to inherit from this. So then all we do is in the properties, inside of the setters of the properties, we say this dot on property changed, and it is easy as that. And so every property we have, we are going to put inside of the setter, we are going to put this dot on property changed. And so then if you notice, when you go back up to our data property changed, you can see the references changed to 7, because we have 7 fields on our model for our user information. Okay, that's it, everybody. We created our DelegateCommand object. We created our OnPropertyChanged object. That's going to allow our UI to know when a property is changed. The command object is going to allow our button to be executed, and our objects are completely and fully beautiful. Like, look at that, is beautiful, beautiful code. All right, so that is complete. Everything today is complete. I want to go ahead and thank everybody for watching. I'm hoping this improved your coding knowledge. Definitely don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. And also, if you've seen something in today's video that you didn't like, or something that you think I should change, or something that you think you do differently that I did not do, please share that in the comments. Because as you know, we are all here to learn, and we are all here to expand our knowledge and our love of code. So I want to thank everybody for watching. Thank you.